Speaking of Gary Newman, this is so weird, but so there's this song called "Common People" by Pulp. I don't know if you ever heard that song. It's really
I believe
cool. But I always just thought it was like some synthy Euro pop kind of deal. But I watched the video last night, and the band, the format, the makeup of the band is exactly like Gary Newman's like Pleasure Principle band. So like a violin, drums, synthesizer, and bass. Which is really weird. And now when I hear the song, I can hear that in there. But yeah, it's a cool format for a band. And actually the Rentals, I think, followed it too, except I guess they added a guitar. But
they added a guitar.
But having the violin and really strong bass and Moog synthesizers, like I didn't realize it was like a deal.
Do you know who was in the Rentals?
It was Matt Sharp. And Pat Wilson, and later Maya Rudolph was
Maya Rudolph.
Yeah,
that's a mind blower. I went down a Rentals rabbit hole about a year ago, and which isn't a
rent hole.
A rent hole. There you go. Who's that? Weezer?
Haploid.
Oh yeah, we should talk about Haploid. Yes.
They're in the waiting room.
Oh, they're are you gonna do this thing again?
No.
Okay. So real quick.
Yeah.
Welcome to Accelerativ Thrust. I'm Dan.
And I'm Erik.
And hold on a second.
You blew it.
I blew it.
The whole thing's fucked already.
I totally blew it. Okay, let's start over. Greetings, citizens of Earth. I'm Dan.
And I'm Erik.
Welcome to Accelerativ Thrust, where we discuss and review underground, experimental, and extreme music with a focus on the Iowa and Midwest music scene, including rad bands like Haploid from Des Moines, who is going to be joining us, I think, right now.
Was that Van Halen?
Yes, it was an attempt at it. You know, there's that scene in the video where, you know how like they're doing all these things where they're describing like all of these events that are happening or something, trying to be like really deep or whatever. You remember that video?
Sure. Yeah, I do. It was like the first thing it was like the first example of like mindfulness that I remember in my life. It's like uplifting memes, basically.
Exactly. It was, that was meme culture before meme culture. It was the Van Halen video.
Is there anything Van Halen didn't invent?
That's true. I mean, they invented frontmen in rock, basically.
And electric guitar.
Finger tapping. They definitely invented that. So that one
and
part.
Finger blasting.
Yeah. The one part that I thought was hilarious, in that is where it said science is trying to invent a better tomato, and it shows a hand just like holding this like glob of shit, and it's like, what? They're inventing tomatoes? I thought they already existed.
Yeah. I've been inventing globs of shit since day one.
I just wonder if like all the tomatoes we're eating now, is that because of the Van Halen video? Probably. Like, do they start out as globs of shit?
Yeah.
And then they just turn into tomatoes. Like,
well, they had that record, GMOU 812.
Yeah, GMO8. Wow. And they predicted a bunch of dystopian stuff with their album 1984.
That's true. Yeah, and then George Orwell stole that. Yeah.
Van Halen were prophets. They also predicted crisscross. You know, crisscross added jump around to jump. So that's my theory.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Should we talk to Haploid? So this is going to be Kaylee and Mathias from Haploid. And we're going to try to calm down and be normal people now. Okay, here they come.
Welcome to the Accelerativ Thrust podcast, Haploid.
Thank you for having us.
Well, I just wanted to say that your album, Cope, it completely blew my mind when I heard it. Like, I went into it, like, the way that we kind of select, like, local releases to listen to, and I just randomly found you guys. And I was like, this looks kind of cool. And then I listened to the first 5 seconds. I'm like, yep, I'm going to recommend that we review this. Then I just didn't know what to expect. And I just want to say that right off the bat, that was just absolutely incredible. But okay, so I think Haploid is an awesome, creative, very original sounding band who I thought was from Des Moines, but it turns out they're actually from Dubuque. And they are one of my favorite discoveries of last year, and I can't wait to hear more from them in the future.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I also would add that I don't know of a lot of other people doing similar things, and what you guys do is checks a lot of boxes as far as stuff I love, but we'll get more into that. Otherwise, I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say.
We're from Dubuque originally, but we're based in Des Moines now. Dave's in Indianola, but I don't know. I would say we've been playing together for a long time, me and Kaylee at least, because it's been about 10 years now.
I guess if you want to go like way, way back, Jancy, who couldn't be here right now, she's my sister and she plays drums in Haploid. We were in a band a long time ago in Dubuque, just a 2-piece called Scamp, where I played guitar and sang and she played drums. And she was about 13, 14 years old, and I was about 17, 18 years old there. And we were just kind of jamming, just kind of got our foothold and everything. And as time went on, I started playing in another project, and that's where I met Mathias, and we were in kind of this weird kind of sample-based proggy type thing called Winterbeard, which didn't last maybe much longer than a year or so. We played a few shows in that, and then Mathias and I kind of clicked more than the rest of the members in the band, so to speak. And then we kind of, from there, we ended up moving to Milwaukee. Didn't really do any music in Milwaukee. Somehow we decided to come back to Des Moines, and I formed this band called Nostromo, who Dave, that's how I met Dave. And then from there, Nostromo disbanded, and then it kind of turned into Haploid. So I think it was something that was always kind of meant to happen. It just took a long time to get there. But we're having a lot of fun with what we're doing right now. The future is weird right now, but we're optimistic about everything going forward. So
yeah, I'd just like to add, I think I saw Scamp's last show. My wife and I, so I worked with, you guys familiar with Fetal Pig?
Yeah.
We love Dan.
Yeah, I worked with Dan, and he was just raving about Scamp. I don't know if they played with you guys in Dubuque or if he just heard about you guys somehow. So my wife and I went, and that was in the Vaudeville Muse days.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I remember that show.
That was Jancy and I's last show as Scamp. So
yeah, so I happened to catch their last show, and my wife and I just loved it. We thought it was great.
Thank you.
Yeah, and do you remember? I don't know if you guys remember, but that night I think Skin of Earth was playing in the PBR bar. They were playing like right across, and I hadn't seen them for years. But anyway, Dan and I have a mutual friend that we used to work together with, and that was the drummer for Nostromo. And he told me, he's like, Kaylee moved to Des Moines, and me and her playing, and I just happened to say, if you guys need a bass player, give me a holler. Which for me was actually pretty bold because I'd only ever played with, guys from high school, and we played off and on for years. Had a band called Surf, just did kind of punk rock stuff. But so anyway, that was pure happenstance because I live in Indianola. I'm like 10 years older than Kaylee, I'm like, we're like a world away in many aspects, but then when we get together, we all just speak the same language. So
yeah, that happens for sure. It kind of seems like you guys were in a lot of different groups, and you just sort of cherry pick the best people out of those groups to make the new group, which is
a big mishmash awesome. One. Like, we're trying to do a lot of different things on this one, like all the electronics and stuff, and the different heavier writing and stuff together.
Yeah.
So
it is phenomenal. I loved Cope when we reviewed it, and I went back and listened to the other things on Bandcamp, and It's awesome. I guess that would lead me to my first question. On the earlier stuff, it almost had like a darker feel to it, maybe a little heavier. Or what comes to mind is like Flowers of Romance era Public Image Limited, if that makes any sense.
I'm into that.
Like into the Cope stuff, it seems a little more fun. I don't know if that is just my perception or if that was a conscious thing or just kind of organically you were like, let's get a little funkier or let's get a little just more fun. I don't know.
I think it was us kind of getting more used to playing together, because on the first ones, it was more a lot of Kaylee and Dave were syncing up together, writing stuff, and me and Jancy were more locking together. But more on this newer stuff, it's more Dave and Jancy are actually being a rhythm section together, and me and Kaylee are taking leads together. I don't know. I think it's more we're getting used to writing with each other and stuff like that. So it's just getting a little bit more able to try newer stuff and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah.
I think there's some of that. I think also it's just the time period. When we first got together, a month later was COVID, you know?
Yeah.
So my in-laws were just absolutely like locking down, and we need them for daycare and stuff. So I'd come in with a mask or I couldn't come in at all. So they'd send me stuff, you know, and I would like with Mathias saying, I played with Kaylee forever. So it was super, natural for me just to link up with her. But then with the Cope stuff, it was more just, it is a little more hopeful, it wasn't so dark, I guess,
Sure.
I would say that probably was unintended, but I think it's real, Yeah,
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. One of the most interesting things is Erik and I, we sort of had sort of different takes on Cope a little bit, and stuff that actually, I definitely agreed with Erik, where I hear a lot of the sort of electronic no wave stuff that he, like he just mentioned, Flowers of Romance. That's interesting that you say that, Erik, about the hopefulness, the more fun sort of sound. Because to me, what I heard a lot of was, like 90s alternative, like Jane's Addiction type stuff as well. I definitely heard the other stuff, but yeah, so we kind of both like I remember when I was the first one to give my review, I don't really remember. And then Erik was kind of like, I kind of wanted to ask if we were listening to the same record.
Yeah, I had to verify that I listened to the right thing.
Were you listening to Haploid Cope? I do think, I don't know. I guess my question is are those type of influences both kind of a part of Haploid and your musical personal tastes? Or was I way off the mark in saying that I kind of felt maybe there was a Jane's Addiction, or I don't know if you guys ever heard like Possum Dixon, like stuff like that sort of influence, as well as maybe the Two-Way Army and Devo and all of that stuff.
So trigger word, Two-Way Army. Yes, I love everything that Gary Newman has touched. That's like definitely on the mark. Jane's Addiction,
great
actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, because we've actually been like compared to that like in Nostromo before. So that's just like kind of funny.
Oh, really?
I'm not like, they're great, but yeah, Jancy's definitely into those types of things too. I would say as far as like 90s influences, I'm definitely a really huge Polvo and Unwound fan. That stuff has always resonated with me since like Scamp time. Like they've always been one of my hugest influences. And Jancy and I, we've always been into, New Order, Joy Division, Bauhaus, things of that nature. And she definitely has a lot of like the kind of avant pop influence as well. I hate to speak for her since she's not here, but I'm sure that she would, resonate with that. So, but yeah, you guys aren't too far off the mark. I love No Wave. I love DNA. I love Fetus. I love those types of things. So that's definitely on the mark. And a lot of prog. I would say like I've always been a huge fan of like older like Rush, King Crimson, Yes, Genesis. That whole slew of awesome prog bands. And I kind of, after COVID hit, those were kind of some of my comfort records. Like I went back to Close to the Edge and revisited those things. And that's kind of what helped kind of inspire Cope a little bit too, was kind of going back to those older albums. So a little uplifting. So
awesome. Yeah. And then another one, I know that Eric and I both agreed on it too. Are you guys big Fugazi fans at all?
I love Fugazi. Yes. Yes.
We definitely heard that, especially in the bass playing. I heard a lot of that going on.
Oh, yeah, I'll take that.
Reminded me of
yeah, I like.
Oh, hey, Dave, you're on video now.
Yeah, I lost it for a second, but I think I figured it out. But I'll take the Fugazi on the bass. That makes me smile. So
awesome.
I missed a lot of it. I heard the Jane's Addiction stuff. That's kind of funny. I never would have thought of Jane's Addiction, but it doesn't hurt my feelings, So,
Sure.
Whenever I work with a lot of people that listen to just basic radio, and they ask me what my band sounds like. And if they go see bands, they see cover bands. And so they ask me what my band sounds like. And I can never give them a straight answer. And it's funny because on flyers, we've had everything from like prog indie to like goth to, so I'll tell them that. Yeah.
Art rock.
Art rock. Yeah. And so I'll tell them that stuff. And then they're just like, I don't know what that is. So the fact that you guys hear so many different things, that's what I hear too. I mean, there's four people that love music, very broad styles of music, and that's what I guess we all bring too. So, but there's never really a discussion about, let's do this style or, it's just what comes out when we get together. So,
yeah, I think that's kind of apparent as well. Like that was one thing I really enjoyed about Cope, but all the releases too was it's seamless. In a sense, and I don't mean transitions from one part to the other. I mean the entire thing. You can't say, well, the bass is doing this and the vocals are doing this and the, electronics are doing this. It's just like its own thing happening congruently, and I think that's pretty remarkable. A lot of people can't really pull that off. So
we really appreciate that. Yeah. You're gonna make me blush.
Oh, I'm just glad you mentioned Fetus. Like that may be only the second time that Fetus has been mentioned on our show, and I would talk about J.G. Thirlwell all day if I
God.
could. So.
Love him to pieces. Yep, scraping Fetus off the wheel. That's my jam.
It's really out of nowhere kind of thing, which I appreciate. Like, where the hell did that come from? So, so you guys sort of talked about how this band started, and if these were shared experience, you could answer together, but even independently. What got you into playing music? What made you go, I want to play an instrument, I want to play in a band? I know it's a pretty broad question, but
so I've always been around music. Jancy and I have always been around music. Our dad was actually always he did a lot of cover band stuff back in Dubuque while we were really little. That's how he actually helped pay for some of our diapers, I guess. I mean, he's always been playing in rock bands. He's in a bluegrass cover band now, and he's always, he kind of helped me pick up my first instrument, which was bass. Actually, I'm primarily a bass player. And then so he rented me out my first bass, and then after I got bored with it, I decided I wanted to start playing guitar. And I've always been into when I was really little, I got really into Rush, and I know that is sometimes a polarizing band to mention, but I probably wouldn't have gotten as heavily into trying to learn bass and guitar if it weren't for them. So I owe a lot of that to Rush. So shout out Rush. Dave, if you want to add to that, I guess I don't know what else to say.
My mom listened to music. She always has the radio on, just nonstop. I was telling these guys, I spent a few months, but when I was really little, the first song that blew my mind is kind of cheesy, but the introduction to Jungle Love by Steve Miller. Well, that introduction, I was like, how do they make that noise? And I couldn't have been older than 3 or 4, but that kind of stuff just always blew my mind. My mom had an electric guitar that was lying around, and it had 2 strings on it, and we didn't know how to play it, but and then by the time I was 14, my brother was playing guitar, and there was a bunch of his friends, and they would jam in our shed at my mom's house, and I'd play Nintendo, and they'd just be blasting shit, and started strumming guitar at the church with the church ladies. That's how I learned basic chords. And then bass is just a lot more natural for me than guitar. So, it's just fun. I like to create things. I used to try to learn other songs, but it's so much more fun just to write with people, And I always just my son started playing guitar recently, and I told him, as like, the best thing to do is play with people that are better than you, and you're just gonna learn so much. Write your own stuff if you can. So yeah, that's kind of where I started. Just always had music and art as a kind of backdrop, things that I've enjoyed. So
Matthias, if I'm not mistaken, you run 5CM Records, correct?
Yep, it's just basically a small time little tape label. I started up when we moved here to Des Moines in about 2014. Little small release stuff, really ambient noise, weirdo kind of stuff. But I don't know, pick up little other oddball stuff here and there. I try to keep an eye on like shows and stuff like that in town, and if there's something cool, I'll try to release something for people like that. But I don't know, it's been fun. Been doing tapes and CDs, like I said. But we did a lathe release earlier this year. A couple years ago, I did a split 7-inch for Kaylee's old band Nostromo, and a split with Skin of Earth. And that still got copies of those around though. But yeah, I don't know. The label's been pretty fun. I really like doing stuff like that. And I don't know, nowadays it seems to be picking up a little bit more because there's a couple more little electronic things picking up in town. Like there's also Liminal Ennui, who runs a little tape label. Trace, Bill doing Warm Gospel and stuff like that. I know there's a couple things out of Iowa City, but don't know them too well. But yeah.
Were you always interested in starting a record label, or was that just kind of something that came about just randomly?
Well, so when me and Kaylee first got together, probably about 2013 or so, we were friends with someone from Milwaukee who was running a little online label called Noisy Arcade. And we ended up being buddies with them and helped out with it and stuff and doing physical releases here and there. But it was mainly like a Bandcamp kind of label. But after that kind of fell through, I ended up really liking the whole style of doing things. So I ended up picking it up. Also, I knew Bob Bucko, and his personal archives thing was a big inspiration.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff. I know another Accelerativ Thrust favorite, Moscow Puzzles.
Yes,
put out some releases from them. They're fantastic.
We're playing with them next month, actually. So
where's that at?
That's going to be at the Hall at Boggs Hall Tavern here in Des Moines.
Pre-show.
Yeah, it's pre-show. Yeah.
It'll be us, Moscow Puzzles, Duo Beat, Dobie,
and Crooked Taurus.
Yeah.
What's the date of that show again?
3/15.
Yes. Yep.
March 15th. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't want to go back in time, but I don't think Matthias got to answer his humble beginnings, which is, I'm sorry to go back upon it. It's just like my favorite part of talking to musicians. It's like, what got you? What was the thing that made you want to do it?
So, I was probably 12 or 13, and it would have been, I don't know, year 2000, 2001. Ended up picking up CDs and like new metal and stuff like that. Linkin Park, A Perfect Circle. And I ended up getting into playing guitar with that sort of stuff. And it all just kind of snowballed over the years. I don't know. No one in my family was really musical, so it was kind of an oddball thing. But I've always been self-taught, learned lots of Nirvana songs and stuff like that to start off with. But just ended up picking up more and more stuff over the years, and ended up getting into electronics like Aphex Twin and 9 Inch Nails.
Right.
Yeah, that was a big game changer and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know, just been picking it up self-taught ever since I've ever known. So yeah, I don't think any of us have had any formal schooling guitar-wise, like in any way, shape, or form.
I took a music theory class once. I retained some of that stuff, but the only time I've ever used it is if I'm writing on a guitar and I can't make a chord sound the way I want it to, then I'll sit there and try to break it down. But man, that stuff isn't intuitive at all. It feels so much better to like scales and stuff. I usually figure out what sounds bad and just not play it,
Sure, right.
And Kaylee does such weird chords that like a lot of times I can make almost anything work as long as I stay in key and rhythm, and it's not, and so there's so much room for just doing whatever, and she hasn't complained yet. So
Nice.
I like to take it as far as I can within the limits of what the song, will sound good with. So, yeah.
I think the late 90s, early 2000s was a pretty cool time to get into guitar. It's not like you were getting into guitar in like the folk era or something. Like
Right.
everyone was using weird ass chords. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
from new metal to anything. Like it was, yeah. And the Nine Inch Nails thing, I think they're a really nice gateway drug kind of deal. Like if you're into metal, you can get into electronics from that, or if you're into electronic music, you can sort of get into heavier stuff. Like it kind of goes both ways.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my opinion. Yeah, the perfect gateway drug. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny you guys mentioned Jungle Love for the synthesizers and Rush. Tom Sawyer is actually the reason I started playing music. So first time I heard that, I was like, what the hell? This sounds like Star Wars.
Yeah, it's amazing,
like,
right?
How do you turn Star Wars into a song? Like it just forever, you know?
I tell Kaylee, it's like her and my mom are the only women I've ever known that like Rush, like have their albums talk about Rush. Like that's just, I don't know what it is. And then around town, like there's been a bunch of like punk rock bands that we play with that just shit on Rush. I'm like, I don't really get it. I just, you know, like I always liked them. You know, I'm not as big of a Rush head as Kaylee by any means, but I remember talking to like Gold Blooms, and they were just like, you know, no. That was like, we're not talking about Rush.
Do you think that goes for all prog? Like, do they shut down any prog talk? Or
I mean, I personally don't like Rush.
But you do like King Crimson, and you know, like
Crimson is like so.
Yeah, Chef's Kiss.
And and I guess kind of the old krautrock and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
but,
it's funny that space between prog and krautrock is like it gets pretty thin.
It's definitely a liminal space between.
Right. Yeah. So you find some really interesting stuff in that space. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, Erik just introduced me to Can a few episodes back, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
Game changer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
We're all just gonna ruminate on Can for a second.
On Can, yeah.
So strong.
We're all stuck in the 70s out here, you know.
70s and prog rock,
right?
So one of the things that I really liked about Cope, and I mean just the band in general, is I love how Mathias, the synthesizer, it's really a part of the music. Like, I guess what I mean by that is sometimes you hear bands where the synth sometimes is just kind of a, I don't know, I don't want to say novelty, but something that just kind of adds noise, you know? But I really, really like the way that there are times where you hear all the instruments together, and it's in the best possible way. It's like you can't even tell like where the synthesizer is, because it's playing along so well to the rest of the song, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like, is that kind of, I guess, what was your approach in including synth in the music, and also your previous bands? And so this could be a question for both Kaylee and Dave as well. All of the previous bands, did they all have synthesizers included, or was this a sort of a new development once Haploid formed?
So when me and Kaylee were in Winterbeard in Dubuque, I had a big Casio, and I tried playing like a guitar and keyboard sort of at the same time. So I sort of had like a background in it. But Haploid's the first band where I'm really trying to like only play keyboard. But I don't know.
Yeah, you had kind of a battles kind of thing going on.
Yeah,
there.
I was trying
doing a lot of multitasking.
A lot of my projects always end up with me having a pile of gear and end up trying to fiddle around with it.
He turns into an octopus.
But I don't know. I guess writing with Haploid, I don't know. I always try not to overdo things, and I don't know. Me and Kaylee always kind of fuss about writing stuff. So
that's like when Molly, my wife, when she sees our band, that's the thing she always talks about most is the synths. You know, like it just brings everything together. Because sometimes he's just like kind of pulsing, like background stuff. Like, you know, I kind of think of. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name of the song. The one where you try. But I was thinking the one where where Kaylee's two-hand tapping all the way through. Some are diminished.
Yeah.
Like the kind of. I mean, you're playing, but it's more of like the sound is kind of crunchy and weird for the verse. You know, it just works great. Like I don't know how you even come up with that stuff. I don't like me. I just have like gain on my bass, you know, and I just turn up really loud. I can't even mess with pedals. it's beyond me. So, but he has all that stuff and it just sounds amazing, Yeah, but Nostromo, we didn't have synths. My old bands, it was always just guitars and bass and drums. So
I think it's always an element that I really wanted to incorporate, but we just never had the right, I don't want to say the right person, but just like, maybe that's it. It was just like finding the right person for the job, I guess. Cause I mean, like in Scamp, like it was always like, there were parts that I could definitely hear it. So then I would just try to like basically overplay to fill in gaps and spaces. But now it's a really interesting experiment in like kind of trying to hold back a little bit and letting some of the other elements kind of come into place. Cause I come from a background where I'm usually having to do a lot of the writing. It just kind of happens that way. It's never really super intentional. It just kind of, that's just the way things happen. So this next batch of songs that we're working on, I'm hoping that we're going to be recording in August this year sometime. But there's parts where I'm playing a lot more minimally, and we're letting the synths and some of the rhythm section kind of cascade and take a lot more of the weight, so to speak.
So do you use a lot of pedals for the guitar on the newer stuff? Are you trying to stay kind of clean, or what?
I've actually recently kind of rearranged my pedal board a little bit, and I I got the Boss Slicer recently.
Nice. Yeah.
The SL2 based off the old SL20 model. So there's a lot of really cool like arpeggiators and different like variations on tremolo in there that I'm going to be trying to play with here and kind of experiment with that. We got a couple more songs that we're still trying to add here to the next record. Writing around the electronics a lot more.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Is the way you described it, are like mostly time-based modulations or whatever. Is that hard to match those elements up with not only an organic rhythmic element like the drums, but also another probably timed modulation element like synthesizer? I mean, a lot of times with the LFOs, that's kind of what you're going for. Is it hard for you guys to bring all that together in a rhythmic way?
Well, we're getting better about it because we're trying to have more like drum machine parts, and it's, sometimes kind of difficult for a drummer to sync up with it. So we're also trying to figure out a whole thing where some in-ear monitors with some of this stuff, but it's been a little tricky, but we're getting the hang of it.
Nice.
Like some of our new stuff, we have like a 20-minute song in there, and that has some whole big electronic parts and stuff in it. But it's been a bit of a mess figuring it out, but we're getting it.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. And I guess while we're talking about gear, as far as synthesizers go, is it mostly outboard stuff, like actual hardware that you're into, or?
Yeah, I'm all hardware. I'm not using any analog synths. I'm actually using all digital. I have a Nord, a little Electron Digitone, a Chord Monologue, and I also have a 404 for samples and stuff like that. I use them for the samples for either just like having something looping underneath of a song or just hits here and there, depending on what we're doing. So
not really basing the song around those samples, more of just like intermittent things happening, or sort of a foundational atmospheric thing?
It's been kind of like different. Like sometimes we've been trying to write stuff around it, like like I know GNC and Kaylee already had their main thing, and we kind of added the trumpet samples afterwards. But there's some like other newer stuff that we're kind of trying to base stuff a bit more around. But I don't know, we kind of change it up for every song. We don't really like repeating ourselves, so trying to write something or new and having a new way to approach something each time.
Yeah. So you wouldn't say it starts with it, like the foundation of the writing doesn't start the same way every time.
Well, most of the time it's Kaylee who has something and brings it, and then like to the table, and we kind of sit together and kind of piece it out and arrange it together. Sometimes I have something to add to it, and I don't know. Jancy's lately been coming up with some beats on her own, which has been pretty cool. But I don't know. Like it's a lot more collaborative instead of one person being like, "Here's the song, y'all are gonna figure it out."
Right, for sure. And if there are multiple people writing, it opens up the process a lot. I think to have multiple people bringing things in.
Dude was like us just jamming, like that's, and then we had a thing, and I think Kaylee kind of worked out parts individually, and we just kind of adapted that. But like Semi-Subnabulous. You wrote, Matthias, right? That was your stuff.
Yeah,
but usually it's like here's like a couple riffs, and like we'll all be writing the rest of it together. Or, we'll decide on parts. But everybody writes their own stuff, nobody's really getting dictated, so that's like the best part, I think, because we are all individually just coming up with stuff. Well, everybody gets suggestions and things like that, but usually there's a couple riffs and we'll just play with it for a while until and then inevitably there's always like we got to add like a weird outro or something.
Yeah,
that's the worst part of writing.
That's probably my least favorite thing about writing songs is the ending. Like I'm really I feel like I'm pretty confident on starting things, but ending them, that's always like
brutal,
I always want the endings to be really important and like really stand out, but it's just it's like any aspect of art. It's like you're doing a painting and it's like how do you know when it's actually done? You know what I mean? That's kind of how I try to approach things, is like just putting those finishing touches can be pretty challenging and frustrating, but when it's done, it's like a really, really good feeling. So
it's funny that she says, because I feel like me and Jancy are the ones that are always like kind of floating, whereas I feel like Kaylee and Mathias, when we're decisive, like they, okay, this is it now, and then that's the thing. But I'm always,
and we're done. Yeah.
I'm always adjusting stuff. I know Jancy is, she's always trying to like figure out.
She'll be hung up on like a little tiny hi-hat, which is fine. Like it's great.
Yeah,
love it.
As long as it doesn't, get in the way of like, okay, the song is done.
I think that's really interesting, Kaylee, that you mentioned the ending of songs, because that's another aspect of Cope and really the earlier stuff as well. There are times where you're like, okay, is the song over? And then it kind of comes back with these sort of electronic interludes and stuff like that. Do you think that's kind of is that sort of a direct result of that sort of thinking, as far as like, oh, is this over yet? Or were those like separate like compositions that you just decided, hey, let's just attach this to the end of this song? Or
it's kind of a mixture of both. There's times when I have completely different parts in mind and I want to throw like a huge like exclamation point at the end of the entire song, and then there's times where I'm like, what, it's just done right here and there. I don't really know. It's very improv, I guess. I don't know.
Well, some of that stuff is
cool.
Ice will just add in like after we've recorded, kind of post stuff where he's just connecting tracks together.
Well, the noises are like sometimes a mixture of stuff I'm doing, or sometimes I just record Kaylee and then chop it up, and I don't know. I'm always a big fan of like the seamless albums where it just kind of keeps going and going. So I usually do that a lot, kind of mixing.
It's fun.
Some of that's not part of the songwriting. It just happens. It's just, that sounds great, Well,
I don't know. I always, for the live shows, I do that too, is having the transitions, like usually having some sample loop or just having something delayed out and make it a big wash.
We're not super talkative on stage, so it's nice to have
small talk and banter.
I have horrible stage fright. So the way I deal with that is to just not say anything at all. So,
I remember Nostromo.
Probably not a good quality for the person who's singing in the band, but whatever. That's just the way it is. I'm sorry, everybody.
I remember Nostromo. I'd have to say, make sure and tell them who we are, and we're Nostromo. So, but after that, it's just music. I mean, that's what we're there for. So
I've never been a huge fan of like a lot of banter, unless it's just like a couple dad jokes or something thrown in. Like that's fine with me. But I'm there to see the band. I'm not there to talk for 20 minutes. I mean, that's just me. But
so how long have you been in Des Moines then, after coming from Dubuque?
Okay, so
2014, I think early 2014 is when we got here. I would
say we lived in Milwaukee a little short of a year, and then we came.
About 6 months.
I mean, 6-7 months ish. It felt like longer. Maybe that's just me. It felt like we were kind of trapped for a little bit, but then we came straight from Milwaukee to here. I have some family that lives here. My aunt and my cousins are here, so it was kind of a nice feeling to have some family to hang out with when we landed here. But yeah, so we've been here since about 2014.
And did you guys pretty much get immersed in the scene quickly, or you know what I mean? Because it seems like the scene is something you slowly kind of have to work your way into. You meet a person here or there or whatever, or were you already connected with a lot of people?
Well, we knew some people because I played a solo set in 2013 at Zeitgeist 3, I think, that was up in Boone. So I ended up meeting a lot of people from Des Moines at that. And so when we moved to town, we just kind of started talking to people and we're like, hey, can we start playing? And they were like, yeah, you can hop on bells. So yeah, and then Stromo pretty much started up immediately too when we got here.
Yeah, I would say I've always kind of felt like we've been kind of on the outskirts of everything. But Joe Bourne from Skin of Earth, I feel like has been kind of a father figure to me, so to speak, in the music scene. So we kind of ended up jamming a little bit too in some kind of like improv projects and stuff. That's just kind of how we fell into it, just kind of on like more of the noise rock side of things. So
yeah, definitely Joe Bourne.
Yeah.
Leader was always big on like trying to get shows with us and stuff. So, but yeah, I felt like we were a little bit on the fringe of the scene. We don't do a thing that's like what you guys have talked about. Is like we're not a specific band. You know, we don't do a thing. We just play our stuff. So, it seems like a lot of bands kind of like want to do a thing. We just don't fit in with that. So, you know, it's cool, you know, but when we play, everybody seems to enjoy it. So, but it seems like now we try to play with a lot of like more touring bands, you know. We did stuff with like Moody Black, which was fantastic. Snailmate, you know, those shows were so much fun. And I guess Legre Hernandez hooked us up with a couple of shows and, you know, they're a lot of fun. So, but it seems like now, I don't know, like the scene's a little... Like I can't quite pinpoint it, you know.
Well, with all the venues closing down now, Gaslight's closing in July. The music's been going out for a while, so and it's a little bit harder to book live stuff at the point with that going on. But. Yeah,
there's definitely a lack of good venues right now. I mean, there's XBK is probably the one that's kind of taking the reins on a lot of things right now, being open-minded to a lot. So
the Lift Downtown has also been booking a lot of DIY shows. Like I set up like noise and free jazz stuff there, and that goes over well. But...
The Lift is awesome.
And Boggs Hall, you mentioned, or Boggs
Hall Ave Tavern.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of that until recently, and it seemed like there were a lot of cool shows there too. Is that
they're more like a standard kind of rock and punk kind of bar, but they have a different booker, so they've been trying out some different things. So
cool.
We'll see how it goes.
We're gonna give that a go. We're not, we haven't played there yet. I think Dave's old band played there once, but we as Haploid we haven't been there yet. So we'll see. Yeah.
Hey, a lot of people haven't heard of it. I think it's supposed to be one of the oldest bars in Des Moines. Haven't been there very much, so down there on the east side. But I mean, we got like 3 shows in Des Moines, and you know we're playing there and XBK and what's Helter Shelter, right? Like only XBK is like the venue, you know. Like Gas Lamp is gone, and we do Lefties every now and again. But this summer we're going to be doing out of town shows, which is where I'm really excited.
Really excited,
awesome.
Yeah.
In Iowa or other states or everywhere?
We have one lined up in April. I think April 22nd. We're playing with Good Morning Midnight, Maze, and Odd Pets at Gabe's. So super excited to play there. I've seen a lot of really good shows at Gabe's, so it's pretty awesome that we're going to be there. Where I've seen a lot of awesome bands play.
We're also on a Caterwall Fest in May up in Minneapolis, and that's a big noise rock fest. So we're pretty stoked with that.
What was the name of it again? I'm sorry.
Caterwall
Fest. It's at Palmer's. Yeah, some of our favorite bands are playing at Caterwall. Multicult, Biggin, Child Bite. Who Stromo we were supposed to play with Child Bite back in the day, and now it's kind of coming full circle that we're getting an opportunity to see him again. So
that's awesome.
Deer Horse
and a Deer Horse, to mention a few few of the ones that I really like up there. So that every band on that fest is awesome, but those are just kind of a few of the highlights for me. So
it's 3 days or 4 days?
Yeah, it's over Memorial Day weekend. So
and we're playing on Saturday, so and then we got a Kansas City show, and then there's a Quad City show. That was out.
Where are you playing out in the Quad Cities?
Rostock.
Have you guys ever played there?
I played there as my solo project at a Weird Town Fest in 2015 or 16.
Yeah, Rostock is a killer venue. It's one of my favorite venues around here.
The Rostock's one I think is going to be with Hayes Noble from Galena, Illinois. He does some noise rock stuff that's pretty cool.
It's like kind of a throwback, like Duster type. So it's really heavy, like shoegaze,
Cool.
like mixed with like Dinosaur Jr. and some like noise rock elements. So he just put out a new record and it's really good. I encourage everybody to go check out Hayes Noble's album.
Sweet. Mathias, you've mentioned your solo project a couple times. I don't know if I caught the name of it. What is it? Is it and what is it, I guess?
I used to play as Underwater Escape from the Black Hole, but lately I'm playing as Gravity's Constant, and that's like some electronic IDM kind of stuff. I have a bunch of synths set up and I jam around on it. So I have a good time, make some weird sounds. So yeah, all right. I've been playing out with that a little bit more. I just played last week down at the Lift with some Bodaya and True Commando.
True Commando.
Yeah.
That's some heavy shit. There's no other way to put that. Insane heavy jungle. Yeah, man.
Yeah. Talk about jungle.
Lift was really bumping.
Yeah, that's cool. Very cool. So you were talking about how this is kind of a off the cuff weird question. So if it doesn't come out right, sorry about that. But you were saying that a lot of like touring acts, when they come through town, you kind of can work with them. I was wondering if by being not so rigid about what you guys do, if you think that helps be a little more enticing as an opener or something like that, or as a support for a touring thing. And then the backside of that question is, then when you go out, is it harder to get on shows because you might not fit in as well?
Yeah, we can kind of fit in, sneak in on a lot of different genre shows.
It's definitely a gift and a curse, because I feel like we're not heavy enough to be on like metal and punk shows, or I don't know how to say that without coming off a certain way, but then we're like not we're not light enough to be like a complete indie show either. I don't know. I feel like we're somewhere in between, but I feel like that's kind of fun, like just keeping people on their toes. But that's just kind of the way my brain works too, is like I listen to so many different things on a daily basis. So you write what you know. That's pretty simply put, I guess.
Dave, you mentioned a while back that you have kind of a difficult time describing your band when other people are asking, and I think that is an indication that you guys are doing something right.
It's only awkward.
Just wanted to make that statement.
Yeah, no, it's only awkward in conversation.
Yeah, in conversation. Yeah, definitely.
If I wasn't in the band, I'd go see us. Like
that's your answer.
Yeah, no, it's true. But when you talk to people, like like I said, a lot of my friends and family and stuff, they do kind of seek out different genres of music that's not just kind of fed to them. But that's not always the case with just people that you work with. They're like, you write your own stuff. How does that go? I don't know.
Talking to about your band to coworkers has to be one of the most anxiety-inducing situations ever.
Well, we played some great stuff. You wouldn't like it.
We played a show with Battles, and I was so excited to tell these guys at work they had never heard of Battles. And I'm like, okay, well, right now I think they're on tour with Primus, and there was like 2 people that heard of Primus, and I was just like, I don't know what to say, guys. I don't know. And I'm right in the middle of the age, so there's like a lot of people younger, a lot of people older, and I just surprised that nobody had heard of even Primus. So I was like, okay, well, trust me, it's going to be awesome for us. But I feel that way about a lot of shows we play lately. We a lot of great bands. So that's like one of my favorite things, is just playing shows, but also playing with awesome bands. So there's so many that we play with that it just I get so excited about. And then going out of town, I think it's going to be even more exciting, because it's just a different crowd of people.
We're really excited to play this music that we've been playing for a couple of years now to a lot of different faces, so it's just,
Plus we got 80% of a new album done,
we're almost done with this new one. So
there's nothing we love more than doing that. We kind of probably do things backwards, where it's like, as soon as we finish recording an album, we already have like half of another album done, and we just want to play the new stuff and not the old stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Which drives Jancy crazy.
Yeah.
So you never truly are supporting the thing you just put out. It's like
No,
the
never.
next thing. Yeah.
You're like, oh, yeah, you put this out. By the way, here's another 5 songs. Whoopsie. Constant layers always happening, but that's what keeps us occupied, though, is like we're always like kind of looking past the current and always thinking about what's next, but it's fun.
Well, it's a good way to avoid something a lot of bands fall into, which is they just kind of stop writing new things.
We don't even play the same set twice.
There you go.
We don't like playing, I don't know. We're pretty like, well, we just played this song last time, so let's switch up.
We definitely, I feel like, well, at least for me, I get bored of our own stuff sometimes. So it's like, okay, let's make sure that we're just mixing this up every time, If it were something where we were going on like a national tour, getting that one set down would be super important. Sure. But since we're just kind of doing some weekend warrior type dates, like I feel like it's fine to just play different stuff each time,
Plus, we like to practice every week, and I mean, why would you? I don't think we would do it if we were always playing the same stuff,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, if we have a show, we'll play a set, but then after that, we're gonna, we'll practice the set, but then after that, we're working on new stuff.
Right.
That's otherwise, and I love practicing every week. And yeah, if you're not writing new stuff, then I don't know what you're doing, like we're very creative people. So, I'm not much of a songwriter myself, but I, love writing to like Kaylee's riffs, Mathias's synths, and like me and Jancy, we lock in pretty quick. So it's, it's just so much fun. And Kaylee will send me like a riff or two and I'll have a idea of what I think the song is, and then by the end of the practice, it's something completely different.
Sure.
And
so do you guys do that though? Do you send out some riffs that you're like, I want to maybe work on this at the next practice? Is that?
Yeah, I feel like I do that.
That's cool.
That intermittently. If there's like something that like sometimes like I'll wake up 2 hours before I need to be at work. That's usually like the only alone time I get to like practice by myself. And I'll be like, okay, just, kind of just jamming along, and I'll come up with something. I'm like, oh crap, let's record that really quick. And I'll send it through my phone to them. And like, all of a sudden it turns into a whole nother song that I didn't think was really going to go anywhere. But yeah, it's fun.
So the collaborative aspect that you guys are talking about is when you guys formed the band, was that always there? Like, was that kind of an idea you guys had? Like you were going to write songs more collaboratively, or did it kind of just evolve into that?
Well, when we originally started, we were thinking about trying to be a synth pop band, and it didn't work out like that at all. But yeah, we ended up collaborating a bit more and writing heavier stuff and going off of Kaylee's riffs.
Yeah, that's definitely, I was going to say the same thing. Jancy and I kind of had this idea of like, we want to try like just straight up synth pop, like put ourselves in a box. And the more we got naturally jamming, we're like, yeah, this isn't going to work. Like, what are we trying? Why are we trying to fight what's coming naturally? And then that's kind of how it just happened. And some of the songs on the first two Haploid EPs, Flora and Fauna, were kind of, I don't want to say leftovers of previous Nostromo songs, but some of them kind of were. But they turned into completely different things once synthesizer elements were put on top of that. I had a lot of things left over. And then Cope is just kind of like, okay, here's what we're actually wanting to do. So
Sweet. Was there any specific influences at the time that made you want to start a synth pop project?
I would say for me, I'm a huge fan of Trust. I don't know if you ever listened to Trust.
I have not.
Okay, yeah, they're awesome. And I'd say, yeah, probably, the 9 Inch Nails.
Yeah, I would say I've always 9 Inch Nails.
The 9 Inch Nails thing is definitely there.
Yeah, electronic rock band thing is always something I've been into. So
I just like playing with Kaylee.
There you go.
I knew whatever was going to happen was going to be great. And then, with Jancy seeing Scamp, I was just like, okay, yeah, this is probably going to work out pretty great. So yeah, no, it was fun. Like I didn't play with them right away because they were I think you guys were trying to get in your own skin together, right? Like get it kind of worked out. I think there were a few weeks where then I showed up and I was consciously trying not to do Nostromo stuff, so I'm just like, it's funny. We kind of just put our own barriers for no reason, blocking what came naturally. And then once we've, because I think we just had a couple songs originally, like, but I'm trying to even think the names.
I'd say Plague
was the first.
Plague was probably the first thing that we like intentionally tried to make like a darker like synth pop song. So
I think Human was, those were the two that we were kind of messing around. Those probably took longer than any songs we've really, I think Play came together pretty fast, but it's sometimes when you're starting a band, you just have no idea where it's going to go. I didn't consciously put anything to it except for try not to be like Nostromo. You just make this a different thing. The synth pop thing was brought up, but I had no real like, I don't know, specific direction. So I always like hearing Mathias stuff. So I was, I think even because he would put out the Nostromo stuff, and there was a couple of times where I'd mentioned to him, I was like, I wouldn't mind if you did one of our things, or playing on a song, or did kind of like a remix or something, just to like fuck with it. Like I just always thought his stuff was so cool. Because again, it's alchemy to me. I don't understand how he does any of that stuff. If it doesn't have strings and I can't turn it up on my amp peg, through my Fender bass, I don't know what the fuck we're doing. Yeah. That's what again, with the no pedals, I want to get pedals, but I don't know. I don't know where they're
trying for a long time.
I always tell them, you can do it like post if you want, like make it sound however you want, and then just tell me how you did it, because I'm not that. Yeah.
You were kind of talking about parameters that you placed on yourselves in the beginning, and then those sort of lifted. Do you think they've lifted completely? I mean, is it an intellectual free-for-all right now, or do you just recognize a feeling that you think the music has and try to stick to that as individuals or a band, or is it not a conscious thing at all?
I'd say mostly the latter. I'd say probably the feeling is kind of what we go for more than anything. I feel like one of the worst things you can do in a band is put yourselves in a box. I just feel like if it feels good, do it, right? I mean, just stick with it.
I think the only time ideas get shot down is if we feel like we've already done that.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
We've already covered that, so we'll move on. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, yeah, we're all just adding our 2 cents, and that's what it sounds like. So
yeah. Oh yeah, that's one of the things I really loved about it, is everything took up its own space, and you notice that everything sort of separately, but it's all on the same page. So that was what I sort of heard. So
yeah,
there's not really a question in there. Sorry.
No, it's okay. No, I mean, like, yeah, I feel like we're getting a lot better as a group. Give and take, push and pull. Just kind of figuring out who needs space at the time. It can definitely be frustrating trying to figure out those moments, but I think that we're getting a lot more, just kind of being able to dovetail off of each other's ideas.
Those first 2 EPs that we did were really like everybody getting used to writing with each other and finding our sound, I guess, because we used to butt heads a bit more about writing little things, but we've gotten way better. Like everybody's used to writing with each other now, and everybody can suggest parts, and I don't know, we've gotten really streamlined at it. Like we've slammed down songs in like 2 or 3 practices lately. Stuff's just been falling together. So yeah.
I'd say the only hairy moments, I mean, it's going to happen when you have siblings in the band. It's like Jancy and I sometimes butt heads on things, but we come out of it like a lot stronger afterwards. Sure. Sometimes there's some words, but we get through it. But it's
never been a band where the drummer didn't get kind of shit on a little bit, just like you haven't taken the drummer. Well, like a drummer, a lot of times they want to do something creative, and you're like, can you just hold down a beat for a second so I can get this thing? But they immediately want to do something creative. Every band I've ever been in, they're just like, can you just play a beat real quick just so we can, but drummers, they want to be as creative as anybody. So, right. But they're the main rhythm.
This next batch of songs, Jancy is just going completely like ham fist, hog wild. Like I'm really excited for recording because it's gonna be crazy. Yeah,
that sounds
super exciting.
Absolutely.
And do you think it'll come out on 5cm then?
Yeah, I'll definitely put it out.
Awesome, nice.
I would say, I don't know.
Do you guys record yourselves?
Yes.
Okay.
The Cope and the EPs we recorded. So
This has been awesome. Before we do let you guys go, is there anything you guys would like to plug where people can get a hold of your music? And
we got all of our music's available on Bandcamp. We're doing another run of Coke tapes right now. We've got CDs available. Otherwise, stuff's also on Spotify and iTunes and whatever streaming service you can think of. Awesome. As for shows, it'll be 3:15 at Boggs, Paul Ave Tavern, then 4-1 at XBK, 4:22 in Iowa City. And now my head is getting hazy on dates.
It's okay.
But
just check our, I mean, I guess as far as like shows, like they can, we post that pretty regularly on our Facebook and our Instagram. So
and Twitter too. Normal social media stuff. So
awesome.
Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And can't wait to hear the new stuff.
Thank you. We're excited.
So. And listeners, you should definitely check out Haploid for sure.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
One of the best things we've heard in a long time.
Thank you.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah, thank you guys so much again.
Thank you again.
Yes. Bye. You guys have a good one.
Bye, guys.
Like, do they start out as globs of shit?
Yeah.
And then they just turn they just turn into tomatoes? Like